have with me Sarah Shaw. Sarah works for Elite Motorsport and we're in the GB3 paddock at the minute, but Elite have GB3 and GB14. And the reason why I wanted to chat with Sarah is because obviously we still champion women in motorsport and females in motorsport where we can, because I'm one myself. And I was chatting with you yesterday, Sarah, and you've got a very interesting work history and CV. And with my platform being called Road to F1, I don't know if you've been up to those heights yet.
Not quite yet.
But it's still a road and it's still a pathway and it's still a career path for many people, male or female. So from your point of view and from your career history, how did you get started in motorsport?
I think I was dragged along to a Grand Prix when I was 11 and I wasn't remotely interested in racing, but my dad said that's where we're going this weekend, and it was the famous one where there was the battle between Mansell and Piquet, and Mansell hunted down Piquet, got the lead, won the race, crowd went wild, and that was it. Loved it ever since, and decided at some point that I wanted to work in it. So did work experience while I was still at school and doing A-levels, then went off to university to do engineering, then kind of started at the bottom and worked my way up. So I was washing the wheels and making the tea and polishing the cars, then I was a mechanic, then I was an engineer, and then got the opportunity with my husband to buy a team. So we had our own Formula Renault team for a few years, did quite well in that, won some championships and things, and then eventually ended up joining our Formula Renault team together with another one out in Holland and raced in Europe. Did a few years of that, also did quite well, ran some drivers that are doing well for themselves now, and then moved up to F2 with that team because they bought an F2 team, or GP2 as it was then, and did that for 8 years. And then
what was that team name?
That was MP Motorsport.
Okay. Oh yeah, they absolutely are. Yeah.
And then we would still be with them now, I think, if it wasn't for the COVID pandemic, because we were in the middle of setting up a team for them back in the UK in a different championship, and then the world ground to a standstill, so we all had a rethink, and myself and my husband decided we'd work in British motorsport again, and here we are.
Okay. So what was your link? What were you doing exactly with MP at the time?
I was an engineer, so each car has 2 engineers in the F2 team. Each car has 2 engineers, and I was one of those. So we did that. The first couple of years of that we were also doing Formula Renault, so engineering in that and running the team in that along with my husband. So that was busy times. But yeah, it's always really been the engineering side of things.
Okay. So you said some drivers. So any names I'd know that we'd know?
Yeah, a few. We might have worked with Max Verstappen when he first drove a car. We did his first ever test in a car while he was still karting.
No way. That's a claim to fame, isn't it?
And Oliver Rowland, who's doing quite well in Formula E. Jordan King, who's done well for himself.
Yeah.
And then champion in the women thing, Alice Powell, was one of my drivers for a few years, actually, back in the Formula Renault days. And I think I helped her a lot.
Oh, wonderful.
And yeah, who else? Pierre Gasly, worked with him a little bit, but mainly just testing over the winter, and then he ended up with a different team. But yeah, there's quite a few.
They do move around quite a lot anyway, don't they, within their junior kind of series, and it's quite amazing that, because I was sort of 3 seasons covering Formula 2, so when you look at that history of that driver and and see the different teams they pop up with, that's I think how everybody knows everybody, and it feels like a family.
It absolutely is, yeah. And a couple of them, Oliver and Jordan, we worked with them in Formula Renault and then again in F2. So once you've got those links, as long as everybody gets on well together and does well together, then they can resurrect themselves later on further up the ranks.
So how's it going now? How's it going with Elite? And what driver are you with Elite?
Yeah, it's going really well. I'm working with Jared Waberski this year. Kind of, we're quite a family team, even though it's not mine and Tony's team. It's Edward Ives's team, but we are quite a family team, so everybody's kind of involved in everything. So we work together on all the setups. So I mainly work with the one driver, but also work on setups with the other cars.
Yeah, well, he did well yesterday, Jared, didn't he? Yeah, and then Mackenzie's done really well today.
Yeah, and Jared nearly had a podium today. He was quick enough, but we didn't quite get it. But still some good points.
Yeah. So going back to the beginning of your career, was engineering, were cars something that you were interested in before you went to that first race? Or when you went to that first race, did you think, no, this is it, you know, I don't want to be a shop assistant, or I don't want to be something that typically a female would go into, you know, back in 2-3 decades ago?
I think if I hadn't seen it live, life would have taken a different route, because it would be on the TV on a Sunday afternoon most weekends, and I'd just be moaning and whining and saying, why do we have to watch this? Dad would be saying, be quiet, I'm watching the Grand Prix. Was not remotely interested. But then when we saw it live for the first time, and my sisters were there as well, and it didn't quite do the same thing for them. They don't really have an interest, but it definitely hooked me. And so from that point onwards, it was just what I wanted to do.
And were your parents supportive? Were they like, yeah, okay, then let's do this?
Dad was, yes. I think Dad thought it was brilliant. Mum was a bit like, no, you need to be a doctor or a lawyer or do something sensible. So I think there was a bit of pushback there, but teenagers are stubborn, so.
Yeah. But it wasn't a typical route though, was it really?
No, and there really wasn't one then. There weren't. Nowadays there are a lot of initiatives and university courses that are a clear pathway, and there wasn't.
Teams have, you know, openings, they do apprenticeships, they do all sorts, don't they?
But there was nothing like that. It really was just make a nuisance of yourself with a team, and they will eventually just be beaten into submission and let you come along and hang around a bit. And then university-wise, I just did mechanical engineering because there were no motorsport courses. And then still kind of had to start at the bottom afterwards, which actually probably did me a lot of good, because you learn the business inside out, and you learn the job from the bottom upwards. So I am glad I did that, but I remember being frustrated when there I was as a graduate washing wheels again. Thinking, where is this going?
But did you ever feel like your gender held you back? Did you ever see your male counterparts getting opportunities you felt that maybe you could have had or should have had?
Weirdly, no. I think that probably because there really were no other girls wanting to do it in those days. I think I was a novelty, and I think that I could probably, if 3 people went for a job, one was me and the other were 2 boys, then I probably had more chance, because they were just interested in talking to, why does this girl want to do racing? And
I'm glad you've said that, and the reason why I'm glad you've said that, Sarah, is because there is a general consensus that, you know, women really struggled for years to get into any kind of male, typically male role. But I've got, not motorsport, but I've got a similar story to you way back in my working career, that I was chosen because I was a female, and I never had any problems, and I was a novelty, and I kind of feel like there's a bit of a myth surrounding women struggling, you know, for years. I genuinely don't think that we have. I feel like we are a novelty, and even now I still think that females are a novelty in that, you know, hopefully one day we'll have hundreds and as many females as men, so it won't be that novelty factor, but I still feel it's a novelty, and I still feel we've got an advantage if any females out there actually want to go into engineering.
Absolutely. I think that, well, in the early 90s, back in the olden days, I didn't really find any barriers. Other than just, I think it was finding out which doors to knock on, really, because there wasn't an obvious career path. There wasn't anybody I could talk to or ask for advice, because nobody in my family came from a motorsport background. My dad liked it, but we weren't involved in it. So it was finding the doors to knock on was a difficult thing. But then once you got the contact, it wasn't hard. And I can't think of one time where I've ever felt that I didn't get an opportunity because I was a female. So for sure, if girls want to do it, now it's even easier than ever, because the industry is actively looking for girls. So I think there's nothing at all to hold them back.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's brilliant. It's fantastic to meet you, and fantastic to know your story. And I'm really grateful that you agreed to chat and agreed to talk, because I do feel like it'll help a lot of females, a lot of women out there, because I think there's still a general consensus that it's difficult, or it might be awkward, or there might be obstacles, and there really isn't. You know, it's just about, if that's what you want to do, there are doors opening, and just get to it and crack on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks so much, Sarah. Thank you.